Air dry clay is a fantastic craft medium, and in my previous video I made this giant dish from air dry clay. Unfortunately, it didn't quite go to plan. The actual creating of the air dry clay was perfectly fine, and I enjoyed making something so big out of air dry clay. It was when I actually came to varnishing and finishing the piece that the problems occurred, as this was on a larger scale. I used UV resin and I took way too long to apply it. It started to seep into the bare air dry clay differently in different patches, and I didn't put the UV lamp on it soon enough, and the UV resin also pulled up and distorted out of shape. All problems I've not experienced when making smaller air dry clay pieces. Thank you for all the lovely comments on that video, and I'm now going to fix this. I'm taking my sandpaper and I'm going to smooth out all the little bumps that appeared in the resin, making sure I wear a mask for this. With the UV resin, I put a lighter and a flame across the top, and I think I did this far too much, and I think that's what caused the bubbles in the UV resin, and then I didn't put the UV lamp on it quick enough. I'm just sanding lightly as I don't want to cause too much dust, and then I wipe this dust away. Sanding the piece all over provides a key for the acrylic paint to be able to attach to and adhere to much better right now. So using acrylic paint, I'm going to repeat the process and I'm going to paint the dish all over. With the problems that happened, I didn't get round to sealing the edges, so I'm giving those a coat of acrylic paint first of all. When I first painted this in the last video, I really should have painted the whole piece in acrylic paint first, but I didn't. I left some of those patches, and so we did have those problems occur. So lesson learned, if adding something like a resin, we need to seal the clay first, otherwise it sinks in too differently in different patches, especially when making something as big as this. As I said, I never experienced it on smaller scale air dry clay, but there's a first for everything and we always learn. That's the beauty of this project. We're learning, we're gaining new skills, different things happen to your clay than it does to mine, and we can all help and teach each other the way we like to do things. But then again, we all do things slightly differently, and that is more than fine. I would have painted the whole piece first in just one base coat of acrylic paint and then maybe painted a different pattern on this, but all of you loved the pattern so much that I decided to just go around the pattern and just repeat it in exactly the same way. So I'm taking my acrylic paint and painting out the background, and then I go on and just paint in all those different green colours, all with acrylic paints, just taking my time. I really find this part of the process really quite therapeutic. I wouldn't normally add acrylic paint on top of UV resin or any resin, but each project can be an exception and see what happens. So let's see what happens with this project. When you're working on a project like this, something that's quite big and takes quite a while, the acrylic paint can maybe start to dry up on your paint palette. So like you saw me do there, I take a little bit of water and I just loosen up the acrylic paint. This little air dry clay paint palette that I made myself in another video, I just take a damp cloth to clean the paint away. So it doesn't have to be the end of the world when it feels like everything's gone wrong in a project. It didn't have the desired finish, but I enjoyed making the project, and I'm sure there's always a way to fix most things. I certainly give things a good try. And definitely painting this, it definitely got worse before it's now starting to get better. I'm not 100% happy with this acrylic paint over the UV resin, but it looks nice and I'm going to make this work. It felt sticky to me as the paint dried and added layers. If I were to scratch my nail across this, I know that the paint will peel off. The acrylic paint hasn't gone on that smooth and there are some bumps still, but I'm not worried about that. I have some marks in the base layer colour and I didn't save any of that colour paint. I'm adding in some extra white lines just to hide those little errors. And so you can always do things like that when it comes to creating. I've let the acrylic paint now dry for about 2 days just to make sure it's fully dry, and I did want to coat this in epoxy resin, but I do need to speed the process up, so I'm choosing the UV resin again. Dreading it slightly, to be honest, after the last experience, and instead of using a brush, I've seen lots of people use their gloved finger like this, so I'm giving that a go, and it does seem to work quite well. So I add UV resin all over the piece and smooth it out, and it's fairly quick this way. The resin applied really easily in this way. Yes, I do have some bubbles, and I'm not going to put the torch on them this time, and using the UV lamp just to cure that resin fully. And so this was my lesson to you. If things do go wrong, not quite to plan, please don't be so disheartened, and there's normally a way round everything. If you have any questions about air dry clay or any project ideas, please do let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next creative video, of which we do have a great video which goes even larger with the air dry clay.